people, it's Tracy Reed here today, coming at you with a fun layout that is based on this Cocoa Daisy sketch from the Umber and Gold collection. And today I am scrapping about this very sad photo, this very wishful thinking photo that I took in August with leaves on the ground. So initially I was actually going to use this photo as a placeholder because the leaves are starting to turn now, and maybe I would change out the photo for something better, but then I had an idea and it worked, and so I kept this photo and scrapbooked it. So you can see I took that stripy paper, or a different copy of that stripy paper, and I cut the stripes off because the sketch had a bunch of paper strips behind the photo, but I didn't want to add in a bunch of patterned paper strips on top of this beautiful patterned paper. So I cut the solid paper strips off of that page, and I'm going to use the solid paper strips behind the photo instead. And I really love the pop of color that gives the page, but it's not distracting like some of the pattern paper would be from the collection, because the pattern paper in the collection is really nice and bright and patterned, but I really wanted something a little bit more subtle for this page. So I'm going to stick all of these paper strips behind the photos, and if you notice, that one on this beige right here has a phrase on it, so I'm trying to make sure that the phrase doesn't get covered up because I want it to be part of the design. I like the way that looks. And I'm trying to organize these colors so that like there's not a dark spot in the middle of the photo or a light spot in the middle of the photo, so I'm separating the two darker colors from each other. And then I didn't know whether I wanted to use this yellow or that orangey color, but the yellow definitely looked better, so I'm making sure that it sticks out just slightly from the photo, just like the other pattern paper. Alright, so that part of the sketch is done. I'm going to stick this down right in the middle. Maybe. I gotta trim that paper first, duh. Make sure that I do that. Sometimes I forget and then I'm like, why do I have all this extra space? Okay, since I used those solid strips behind the photo, I now need to choose a different paper for the other side. I really liked this heart paper, and I thought it matched the colors really well on the other side, so I'm going to use that. Trim this down. Make sure I trim it down. Okay, so I'm getting out some of these stamps, and I initially had an idea to create the wreath, that leaf wreath, on the sketch with those stamped leaves, but they were just too small. So I go through the process of stamping all of the leaves and then don't use them. So I cut that out on camera, but I do pull everything out. I am going to use that wreath stamp on that stamp set right there, and I'm going to, initially I thought maybe I could use it in a light color, so I'm going to choose the yellow or the orange, yellow. I thought I could stamp it in a light color and then use the Autumn is My Favorite ring on the other stamp set and stamp it right around the inside edge of that wreath. The problem is that it just doesn't quite fit perfectly, and when I stamp the Autumn is My Favorite over the wreath, it looks too busy, it doesn't read well, and if it had been slightly smaller it would have worked perfectly, but it doesn't. So instead I'm going to take the wreath stamp again, and I'm going to stamp in brown, and I'm going to use that as my base, and then I'm going to take the stamp from that same wreath stamp set where it says Autumn is My Favorite, I think is what it says. Pretty sure. And I'm going to stamp that in the middle of that wreath instead. Maybe it says autumn is a whole mood. We'll see together. Autumn is a state of mind. That's what it says, which is true. And that once I stamped that, or realized that I was going to use that stamp, that's when this page started coming together, and I was like, autumn is a state of mind, and this photo was taken in in August, not October, but it's perfection. So I knew that I was going to be popping this wreath up off of the page with a pop dot. So I knew that none of the leaves that I put around the edge had to be sticky. So I didn't want to use any of the die cuts that come with the adhesive background. So instead I used the ones that I printed from the Cocoa Daisy printable sheets. Yep. Just arranging them so that the colors work and the leaf shapes work together. And I'm trying to just make it look a little bit larger and not ragged. So I'm making sure that the layers look good together and some things are overlapping, trying to just fill out this whole wreath. I like all the different leaf shapes. I like how some places stick out farther than other places. It ends up working out really well and it's very pretty. I decide to pull this leaf off and actually group two of the same leaves together down here in the right corner because I felt like that beige leaf down there kind of disappears. I'm going to mess with this berry thing for a minute here and then I'm going to be like, no, I don't want that. Come on. So when I flip it over, I see that one is a die cut and I need to replace it. There we go. So now I've got two grouped down there in the bottom and I actually really like the way that that looks, the two of the same group down there. So I'm going to pop all these up on pop dots, put one in the center and then one in every basically every corner, just so that it has a little bit of support down there and it doesn't collapse into the page. And I'm going to center it right in the middle of the page, just like the sketch says. Okay, so now I need to figure out what I want to do as far as embellishing. So I'm going to add some more leaves here because the whole page is about how the leaves are falling, and I don't care if it's August, I'm in an October state of mind. So I'm going to sort of color coordinate the leaves generally around the same color paper strip. It's not quite perfect, but it sets a tone, even though they're a little bit different. I always have a hard time getting the backings off. Okay, so I didn't know where I wanted, like those two up there in the top were the same shape, and so I was like, well, do I need to put a different shape up there so that it's not the same? Going through all of these die cuts. So I end up with 3 of each leaf. Yeah, 3 on the top and 3 on the bottom, sort of clustered. Am I going to put this one up here? Thought about adding the squirrel. His tail hung off the edge. Instead, I'm going to do October Mood, which is going to set the stage for my journaling. Pulling in some of these hearts as well. I really like this thought bubble heart. I think it's going to work perfectly over the top of my shoes since my shoes are white. I'm going to put it right there over the top. Ah! I think that really draws the 2 leaf clusters together as well and creates a solid line. So I printed out my journaling. It's going to go on the top and the bottom of this wreath. It says, don't try to tell me it's the middle of August. I 100% do not care. Autumn is a state of mind and it lives in my brain rent-free all year long. The leaves are falling, people. That means it's time to move into an October state of mind. I'm gonna add in a couple little more bits and bobs here and then call it good. So if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. If you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I'm at Tracy M. Reed. If you're interested in subscribing to Cocoa Daisy, there is a link in the description box below. And I will see you next time. Thank you.